So welcome to Northern Powerhouses, our business success stories series of interviews where we discuss with local business leaders their backgrounds, their successes and their challenges and what's really driving them forwards. And today I'm delighted that we have with us Seb Francis, who's co-founder at both Titus, which is an edtech company, and HACIEN Tequila. So Seb, firstly, thanks for your time this afternoon. And if you'd like to introduce yourself and your businesses to the audience, what you do and how you help people, that would be wonderful.
Yeah, absolutely, and thanks for having me on. So, as you mentioned, a couple of businesses, which I'm sure we'll get into to both those. So the first and one that's been going for about 10 years, which is the big purple T behind me, is Titus, and it's was Titus Learning back in the day, but we got brave enough to drop the learning and just stand by the Titus. So,
Brilliant.
been going for just coming up to 10 years now, and really we're helping organizations with all of their online learning and development. So providing what's known as a learning management system, and then any training they need to do that is online or can be facilitated online, they'll use that platform for that. For reporting, it could be for their staff members, for the kind of wider community, all of the customers they work with. And fortunate enough to work with some fairly good names with the likes of Network Rail, CNN, Superdry, Wasabi, and a whole range of plenty of others across a range of segments. So that's it's exciting. I'm sure we'll get into more detail around all of that. And the second one is HACIEN Tequila, which is this little fella here. So rather different to tech, other than the fact it sounds a little bit similar, but started that about 18 months ago. Always had a big desire to kind of build and start an alcohol brand, and then myself and the other co-founder Jordan got cracking. We launched 18 months ago. The idea probably first came about 5 years ago, and I think for years we were like, "I'll be ready this Christmas," and it was never ready that Christmas. It was always much later, but thankfully we launched last year, and again in terms of like where we work, and we do obviously a lot in and around Leeds, which is where we're based, but Manchester, London, starting to toy with a few international ideas, and the likes of Harvey and Selfridges and plenty of other great brands have kind of got behind it and sell it within their store. So we'll jump into both of them shortly, but yeah, high level, those are a couple of bits.
Wonderful. I can't wait. And obviously two very different businesses in different stages of the growth. So I'm really keen to learn a lot more from you about what you've learned as you've grown. So maybe if we just start, if it's okay, so with your background, how you got into business and why these two businesses. I guess you've explained the second, but maybe why the first.
Yeah, absolutely. So my background was went through school, A levels, did the usual path, went to university, lasted a full 3 months at university, which consisted more of drinking than it did lectures, I think. So it was there, pressures, and then it was out of there. Well, it wasn't really for me. Didn't agree with it too much, which I think is an interest they are doing quite a lot more now. I think with apprenticeships and other stuff to show that there are different paths to get to where you want, but that's the time was just very naturally if you've done all right in school, you go to sixth form, you go to uni, and so on and so forth. But after I'd left there, I went into a job which was sales related. It was within an edtech company,
right?
And then quite quickly just enjoyed the job, the sales piece, earning some cash, and decided to stay there as opposed to going back to another university. And at that point, I kind of progressed through the company a little, and ultimately had frustrations with how things were being done, and didn't have the autonomy to change it necessarily. So it was myself and a colleague at the time. We looked at that and thought, can we do this ourselves? Can we do it different? Can we do it better? Can we do it for a different market as well? So we worked a lot with schools at the time, so for all of their online teaching and learning. And the international school space was growing hugely. So English speaking international schools, it could be the British School of Shanghai, the American School of Kuala Lumpur, whatever it might be, where typically you've got expats usually who send the kids to schools in non-English speaking countries. So that was the market we were looking at. And then after a few years and through a few partnerships and new products we'd looked at, that kind of flipped to be working much more with corporates and workplace clients, which it was done. I think we kind of wanted to get there, but we didn't have a strategy as such. But then almost accidentally, I suppose, through the decisions we made, we ended up naturally getting a lot of inquiries from corporate clients and business clients or membership bodies, professional services, whatever it might be. And really the tool is similar, it's configured differently, but it's ultimately a platform which can host content, people can access it, You can assess how well they've done. You can report on that. You can analyze it,
Brilliant.
rinse and repeat, and go full cycle. So whether that's for a school or whether that's for an organization with 100,000 staff, you can make it work for either of them. So for the past, what year are we in? 2023. I think the past 6 years we've probably been more focused on businesses and mentioned a few of the names that we've worked with, and really as we've grown and we're about kind of 40, 50 staff now, the focus has been, and the vision as well tied into that, is like, how can we empower others to have a positive impact on the world through the work we do? So that then means that the kind of customers we're selecting, and I think customers selecting probably the wrong words to use, but the customers we almost choose to work with in a way, or market to, and we market very much off kind of us as a team, our individual, our personalities, what we're looking to do, and really proud of what the kind of end impact of the work we do is. And then from a commercial perspective as well, seen really good growth levels year on year, and managed to do that naturally through customer acquisition as opposed to needing external finance, which has been nice. It certainly has its challenges at times when in the early years you get to the beginning of the month, you got no cash in the bank and you need to pay wages at the end of the month. It's like, all right, 28 days, let's get cracking. But yeah, it's been a really, really good journey. And then with HACIEN, obviously, it was less so the jump into starting a business because you'd already done that piece. So that didn't feel quite as daunting or overwhelming, the thought of starting a new company. And I've done a few other little bits over the years as well. But it is a case of trying to balance your time. Is it feasible to do two at once? And fortunate that with both of these, there's another co-founder as well as myself on the side, so it does make that a little bit easier as well. But that was much more, have we got the time, have we got the resources to go about it, and jumping into a completely new sector. So the business element wasn't so scary. Getting into a market that we just knew nothing about. So Jordan, he's from an electrical engineering background, so people are like, why is some tech geezer and some lecky thought that they can do tequila from Mexico, which sometimes we ask ourselves as well, Chris, but it seems to be going all right. So,
and why not is the answer I would have.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, that's where we are. And it's like HACIEN's much earlier on in its growth cycle, but hopefully going to follow a similar, if not a larger trajectory than what we've seen at Titus.
Brilliant. It's really funny, actually, coincidentally, because literally this morning I was talking to one of my clients about they're looking at buying a separate business as something else, as another revenue stream, totally different business. And it was, the key conversation was how much it would distract from, the point being is because, as you rightly say, pretty much this business is running without him now. The ability to run that one without him as well was really clear. But the key thing, it wasn't going to get in the way of making sure we kept this one going. And it's great to, I mean, I don't know how well you know about the stats of business success and unfortunately failure, but to get to 10 years, which you're about to hit, is unfortunately, in general, let me think, 80% of businesses fail in the first 5 years. And of the 20% that survive, 80% of those will fail in the following 5 years. So to get to 10, when you get to 10, you're in the top 4% of businesses. So, well done in many ways, in every way. So it's worth a celebration now. I'm sure you will be celebrating.
But we've got, I don't see anything too drastic happen in the next 5 months, but we'll get to December 3rd and then have a beer or a tequila.
Definitely not intended to jinx you. Well, definitely. Well, both. I guess one
why not? 10 years, I think it's shout for it.
Brilliant. So when you were, I mean, just to go back to early days, but when you were growing up, is this the sort of thing you saw yourself doing, or do you have a different path at that point?
Yeah, I think when you're like lots younger, you probably go through I want to be a footballer like every young lad, but a good chunk of them I've known, that's for sure, or rugby or tennis, whatever else it might be. So there were those few bits, but I did always have a natural interest, I think, in business, in entrepreneurship. Did a few little bits even in school, which were along those lines. And chatting to a friend earlier as well, and he was asking a similar-ish kind of thing. And I think you do have that itch that you need to scratch somehow, and you do the same thing, but just on a much bigger scale. So instead of buying, I don't know, packets of sweets and crisps from a shop when you're a kid and selling them for a bit more, you're taking investment for tequila, or you're working on services for tech and ed tech and all the rest of it. So yeah, I think that naturally always kind of been inclined, and I think a lot of people who do start their own business or have a side gig or consulting, whatever it might be, I think they naturally have something in them which leads them to doing it, and or a push, which we had to some degree with that frustration previously of
Yes.
things not being done right, and not too dissimilar with the tequila as well. And a lot of the time with the tequila, we talk about your tequila story rewritten is one of the like little taglines, and it's the idea of there's a perception around tequila, and there's a challenge around it, and that thinking of do you know what, people have been doing it, but it's not landing correctly with the demographic we're going after. How can we do it different? And
Right.
I'll say different there than better, because everyone's got different preferences. But
Yeah.
I think that liking a challenge naturally as well leads you to want to do it.
Brilliant. Absolutely fantastic. Yeah, yes, I think I get where you're coming from in that respect. So looking at both businesses, but what are some of the biggest issues you've had to overcome as you've grown them?
So I think different, obviously, on both sides. With Titus, it was more so we knew the market, we knew the industry, we knew the products fairly well. We knew the approach we would take from a sales perspective. Both Mike and myself from commercial backgrounds, so there was naturally this tech gap that we had to fill. So with two non-techie people starting a techie company, so naturally getting the right expertise and resourcing and around the tech side was an important piece. We'd never run our own company there, so again, all of the usual things that go along with that, whether it's the accounting, whether it's the forecasting, the sales and marketing strategy, the internal IT, the website you need, whatever it might be, the early bits and the later bits as well. Running the general day-to-day running of a business, that was all a learning curve, and it's one of those you just jump in the pool and learn to swim sort of thing, which we've managed to do okay, and then you continue to pull people in around you to make that bit easier. And then I think over the years with Titus, over the past few years with Titus in particular, it's been more of getting to a slightly larger scale and having to run it more as like a proper company. I remember a few years ago, it's like a proper company now, because it's not just X number of you in a small office. There's quite a lot more of you, and they might be up and down the UK or overseas. Clients here, there, and everywhere. Different client types that expect different levels of service, governance, process, accreditation, and ultimately you start dealing with, in the early days, you kind of, not frivolous, but it is a little bit easier because there's nothing, or there's much less to lose. There's less kind of dependency on you. There's much less staff. There's much less customers. All that. But as you get bigger, all of a sudden you go, actually, well, if we cock something up, there's this number of customers, this number of staff, this amount of money, X, Y, Z. So the decisions you make do start to get bigger, and you've ultimately just got to run the company in a different way. And I think culturally, you get changes as well, which can be challenging. And you from day one, you're thinking, that'd be amazing when we're turning over X million, or it'd be amazing we've got this many customers or this many staff. And then you get there and you're like, it's quite bloody hard, this actually. And you've got to, and some of the things that you naturally have culturally in the earlier days, you do lose some of those bits. So it's like, okay, how do you fill that gap, and how can you continue that culture and satisfaction within the team and stuff the same way? So I think challenges with Titus, early days, learning how to run a business, latter days, how to run a proper business, kind of summarised loosely. And I think with HACIEN, it's been completely different market. It's product based, it's business to consumer instead of B2B. Some of our sales might be B2B, but ultimately the end consumer is a customer who's picking it off a shelf or grabbing it from behind a bar. Lots of back end operational stuff. I thought finding the liquid or creating the liquid or getting the bottle, the brand, I thought that would be the hard bit. It wasn't easy, but it's daft things like logistics, international tax law, all of that kind of stuff. Like, if you want a stress-free life, just don't do anything that involves shipping anything from anywhere at any time. It's painful. But yeah, the things that you don't think you don't know what you don't know. I mean, that's the end. Those have been also probably some of the most challenging and very, very competitive. And also, I think the difference with the business models is, if we provide a learning management system for somebody, they will typically have a single learning management system, and they typically need it. So it's a case of they need it, they're only going to have one. Can we be the people to do that for them? Whereas with a tequila, they don't need it or very rarely need it, and they can have multiple of them. So if you're going to a bar, to a venue, to whatever it might be, we've got this new tequila. This is the taste. This is the look. This is the price point. As much as they may or may not like all of that, they don't need it. They've got all the tequilas there. So if they get it, it's added value, but it's not going to make or break them if they don't have it. So I think getting your head around that a little bit, that's taken a while as well. So.
Yeah. No, it makes sense. It's really, as I say, really interesting, the mature business and the new business, and totally different routes to market and types of client, which is fascinating. And I mean, it was interesting. We got our business up to over 100 people before we sold it, and I remember different stages of the team, if this makes sense. So the first 5 to 10 people, you know, really well. You knew the family, you knew the pets, you know, you knew everything. Many of them would be your best mates, sort of thing. And then you sort of get to 2025 and you start to know them, but not their families as much. And then, you know, above 50, it's like sometimes people join and you don't know who they are. You know, who's that guy?
Yeah.
How you know, is that something you've experienced, and how have you dealt with those changes?
Yeah, it has. And I think we're at that stage now where over the past few years, because for a time, Mike's the co-founder, would be involved in at least a stage of the interview process of everyone who came in up until not so long back. And we still do try to do that where we can do, but we also get people who come in and it's like, and like you said, not quite who's that, but it's a new face and it's what exactly doing. And then day to day, you might not have all that many dealings with them other than catching up whenever it might be. So we've certainly found that. And I think, if I'm honest, I think there's like a little bit of a sadness to the situation of where you're all kind of so close knit and tight, and like you say, you've got those relationships to. I remember like the first time when someone referred to me as like the boss or whatever, which I was like, yeah, am I the boss? I was like, well, I suppose you are. But it's like you just used to go into the pub and then it's all the bosses here. I thought, actually, like the dynamic switch, dynamic change. So it's a little sadness, but I think ultimately to get to where you want to get and to grow and to service your clients and have new people join and all the rest of it, it's a necessity. And like I say, just trying to find different ways to keep that culture. And a lot of the work for us was trying to find a really solid set of values and vision that we could all get bought into. And the way that we kind of got that ourselves was to extract that from the staff and almost rewrite it and push it back to them, as opposed to write it and say, this is the vision, these are the values, you must live by them. It was very much what brings you to work, what inspires you, what motivates you, what's the best thing about your thing, what's the worst thing. And did a piece of work for quite a good few weeks, if not months, of getting every single staff pretty much involved in that. And I think that helped get good buy-in. And then, as we've seen over the past few years, things around like well-being benefits and stuff, that's jumped right up the agenda for us, as it has done many other companies. And the type of ways that you build culture and build satisfaction, it's less so we're having Friday afternoon off to go kick a ball around in the park and have a few beers, and it's more so enhanced maternity and paternity or whatever else it might be. It's just changing as the business changes and business grows as well.
Brilliant, fascinating. And what would you say some of the biggest learnings you have about business in general, growing it, starting it, that sorts of things? What are some of these that stand out for you that you've learned the most?
Going right back to the beginning phase, when you've got either an idea. Well, you're probably starting with either a solution or a problem, and you've got your solution and you're trying to find if there's a problem out there that it can fix, or you've got your problem and you're trying to work backwards. But I think trying to assess at the beginning how genuine that problem or solution is massively important before you jump feet first into something. Is it just a problem for you? Well, maybe not. It's a problem for others. Okay, it's a problem for others. Is it a problem of which people are willing to pay to solve? If not, it might not be commercially viable. They're willing to pay, but are they willing to pay X amount? Or if they're willing to pay, is there another alternative they could pay for, so on and so forth. So I think through that ideation phase, really looking at the problem or the solution and stress testing the hell out of it to see, does this function as a business, I think is huge. If it doesn't, it ticks the boxes. Is it something you can truly get bought into? And I think, so a friend and I at one point were going to open a vegan restaurant because we could see the increase in veganism. We could see the bad options for vegans out there.
Yeah,
I'm probably one of the biggest meat eaters you'll ever meet. So then I was like, it feels a bit wrong trying to start a vegan restaurant and probably pump the profits into purchasing steak for myself. So it's like, can you truly get into it as well? And can you, is your heart going to be, because as you well know, and others do as well, it's hard, and you've got to have more than just a financial goal or just a status goal or just what you've got to be in it. And if you're not, then you're going to put ties with it at some point anyway. So I think there's a lot around the early stage. In terms of cutting ties, I think as you go, there's always those tough points, and not to say that you should blindly continue at all costs, but there are patches where you've got to be able to just head down, push through, and ultimately, like, you assess your situation. Is there still a good path forwards? Yet there is. It's spiky, it's rough, it's going to be tough, but like, head down and crack on, because I think a lot. Well, the statistic you mentioned at the beginning, or 80% up to 5 years, 80% of those up to 10 years, which gives you the 4%. Some of those, I mean, look what COVID must have done to certain businesses, like completely unexpected. It's completely out of somebody's control. But in other situations, it'll have been a case of it's just got too tough for people. So have you got the resilience to keep pushing, as and when you need to, is a huge one. And I suppose like a final bit is not thinking that you, one, can, or two, should do it all on your own, because it's near on impossible, whether that's a co-founder you might have, whether it's an advisor, whether it's a friend, a family member, whether it's staff that you employ, whether it's a professional consultant you pay, or an NED, an investor. Like, the list is endless of people around you, but no one's done anything of note on their own. It's quite a big statement, but I think there's probably truth in it. Everyone who is at a particular level has had people around them helping, supporting, and building together.
Yeah, no, bang on. Actually, it rolls into the next question. But one of the phrases I've seen, and I think it was a CEO of a large American corporate, but basically said, no one can achieve their true potential unless they're held accountable by somebody else. So that doesn't mean they haven't done it by themselves, but maybe they didn't hit the potential. But no, and so you know, as you're aware, we're a business coaching organisation, and I'm keen to know who the best coaches or influencers you've worked with, whether that's business, sport, life in general, and what made them so.
Yeah. Well, I always have a conversation like this, or just conversation with friends and family. Always, with Titus, there's two of us. There's myself and Mike. I've learned a hell of a lot off Mike. Hopefully, he would say the same, but I might have just been a pain in the ass for 10 years. I'm not sure. But we've, I think, bounced off one another really well over the years, and come at things from a very different angle as well, which I think has also been helpful. If we were two people the same, then it's, well, what you're getting from it. But I think we come at it from a different angle. That helps a lot, and he's helped me a lot, and I've learned a lot from Mike. Being particular people where we've consultants, like I just mentioned, that we've either paid for their time quite specifically for particular problems that we've looked at, and then from a non-professional perspective, a number of friends who are kind of similar mindset, could be completely different lines of work, or sectors, or whatever they're working in, but where you can just have good open conversation. And I think ultimately the people who help you the most are not the people who go, you should do X, you should do Y. It's helped to pull those answers out of you, and ask you more questions to help you get to the conclusion. And then at that point, there might be a bit of help and support about how do you execute it, but in terms of the direction and the strategy and things like that, yes, you can lean on people, but I think you've got a lot of it within yourself, or you can go out there and find it. But it's not having someone just go, do this, because the way that we're all wired often is someone says, just do this. You either don't know why you're doing it, or you don't want to do it because someone's told you. So I'm usually the latter. But
I mean, it's a perfect demonstration. Describe the definition I have of a consultant, which is someone that tells you what to do or does it for you, and often is very valuable in that. It's like, I want that fixed, and they'll fix it for you. A coaching approach, a coach is about drawing out of you, as you rightly say, what you need to find, and then the second part for me is holding you accountable to do the stuff you've said you need to do, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, definitely.
If that's exactly what you said, I remember my first. It's a long time ago now, but my first day of training, I was told, and it is true, I did look it up, the word education comes from the Greek word educare, which means to draw out. Where traditional education, I would suggest, is pushing in, isn't it? It's telling people.
Yeah.
So it very much, an education isn't about telling people, it's about drawing out from them what they need. And I've always had the principle that everyone I work with has always had everything they need inside them to get where they want to go. They might want to add some knowledge, etc., but the abilities, the ideas, they're all in there, and it's our job to get it out rather than push our ideas in, because you're absolutely right. I've never met a business owner that wants to be told what to do for any length of time whatsoever. It's like that. That's why I've got a business, because I didn't want some other person telling me what to do. So
exactly.
It doesn't really work. So and do you find yourself using any favourite quotes or sayings on a regular basis, Seb? Because it's I like to pick them up. I collect them. Is there anything that you use a lot?
There's one that I've got as my wallpaper on
Brilliant.
my laptop, which is far too long to read, but it's not The Critic Who Counts by Theodore Roosevelt. But the general sentiment, it's not that the critic who counts. Sure, I'll read it. It's rather
Please, yeah, please do.
So it's not the critic who counts, not the one who points out how the strong man stumbled or how the doer of deeds might have done them better. The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred with sweat and dust and blood, who strives valiantly, who errs and comes short again and again, who knows not the great enthusiasms, the great devotions, and spends himself in a worthy cause, who, if he wins, knows the triumph of high achievement, and who, if he fails, at least fails by daring greatly, so that his path shall not be with those cold and timid souls who know neither victory nor defeat. So it's quite a big one, but I just like that thought of win or lose, you've given it a go and you've enjoyed the journey along the way.
Love it. Absolutely love it. No, and it's like, you know, you've got to be in it, haven't you? You've got to be in it to win it. It's like we've got to do it, and that's the point. It's sitting on the sidelines, you know, looking at other people is not the right way forward. Wonderful, thank you. I'll keep that one. I think I interviewed someone recently who's had the use that's their favourite quote too. Funnily enough, and it wasn't that long ago, and it's so good. So
there's one at the moment isn't kicking around because Wimbledon's on. It was Billie Jean King, but that pressure is a privilege, which I also quite like. So that's
I think that's cool too, isn't it? It really is, and it's the one that goes alongside that actually. I'd be good to get your view on it, but I was told a long time ago by the ex-CEO of Action Coach, and he said, Chris, the job of a business owner is to solve problems. And basically, so if you don't like problems, get out of business, because that's a big, it's like let's not complain about problems. And the thing that I've developed over time, and my beliefs have increased, is that growth typically causes problems. So problems are often through growth, and so if we're not getting problems, it means we're probably not growing fast enough. And so we should be embracing them and going, great, that's my job. I can't wait. It doesn't feel like that in the moment. I get it, but it's like, the problem isn't the issue. It's actually a good thing to have. I don't know if that makes any sense to you at all.
Yeah, no, it certainly resonates. It's like problems, growing pains. Like it's the easiest way to look at them. It's when everything's going. If we decided this year, actually, we just want to remain flat or do single-digit growth, well, I'd feel less tired. It'd be quite nice. It'd be all right. But then what's the fun in that? So you get the challenges from the growth, but that's the fun bit.
And the other thing to go with that, which is interesting, is that I think it's Michael Gerber often likens businesses to trees, and he says they're either growing or dying. So the idea of static isn't really an idea anyway, if you know what I mean. If we do take the foot off the gas, we're probably dying rather good. So look, in both arenas, what does the future look like for you guys, and what do you see the main challenges you face, if any?
Yes, I think with Titus, as I mentioned, it's a lot more established. We've got a large team. We've got the management team. For us now, we've gone through that startup phase, the kind of more SME. We've got the structure, a few larger clients. It's now how can we continually prove that we can attract and retain the enterprise level clients, and there are certain benchmarks, be that with turnover, with staff, with whatever else that you want to hit, and those milestones that you want to push through. And then ultimately start looking at we've achieved quite a lot with the initial product offering that we've got. How can we do that with other product offerings? How can we develop further things ourselves? Do we look at internationalization? AI is obviously like a massive hot topic at the moment. So how's that going to impact things for us? And about 18 months ago, we did a piece of strategy work. We're about halfway through that to get, again, to a particular point, and continuing to execute on that. So Titus, continued growth, hitting those same growth percentage levels as you get larger, as you know, does get tougher. But like you said, the challenge and the problems are the fun bit to jump into. and really just looking at continued growth over the next few years. And then with HACIEN, it's the complete flip. We've got that initial momentum, and we've got a kind of a fairly decent base, quite locally, an okay base a bit further afield, and then kind of unknown thereafter. So really trying to get on the map within the UK, and which is a big old place, but then thereafter it's looking more international and starting to do a few bits. We did some work with with Formula One out in the Monaco F1 earlier this year, which was quite cool. Some sponsorship stuff.
Wow.
Yeah, so that was good, and we've got more of that coming up. Events, build the team, and we're unsure what we may or may not do there from like a fundraising perspective. We didn't do any fundraising stuff with Titus. We did with HACIEN. We might do more of that, and it's fairly. It sinks a lot of money to get the stock to sell to market to get off the ground, especially when you're going up against the absolute giants in the market. So much earlier stage, need to nail a few key regions in the UK, get that point where you're a bit more of a household name.
Yep.
And then have a good bit of fun with it as well, because it's a nice industry to be in.
Absolutely brilliant. No, it's great fun. I just love the fact you've got these two totally different businesses at different stages, and clearly enjoying it from everything you said. And so I'm keen to know what you'd say to anyone that was thinking of going into business right now, Seb.
I think you'd probably point back to the point I made around kind of testing the ideas and looking at the problem, looking at the solution.
Yep.
I've referenced a book called The Mom Test in a call I did earlier, that's all around idea validation. And you can go to your family member, you can go to your partner, to your mate. A few people are going to say, "No, I think it's crap." They're all going to go, "Yeah, it sounds brilliant," but like get into it properly and understand: is there a market? Is there demand? Would they pay? How much would they pay? What's already existed? What people who's tried things previously, and just test the hell out of it until you go, "I'm willing to bet X on it," because you will be betting something on it. You'll be betting your free time, you'll be betting your job, you'll be betting your savings, you'll be betting relationship, you'll be betting there's going to be sacrifice if you do it. So do be sure that it's something that you want to push on with and you can get behind it. It's an interesting time, I suppose, from like an uncertainty perspective on like a more macro level. We've come out of COVID, but then we've seen recession, people question the general markets and stuff. But I don't think timing can definitely land right, but I don't think it's never a perfect time to do something. When we first started, COVID hit, so the hospitality sector just went. But that was, for us, we were thinking, it's an absolute nightmare. What that actually meant was we had another year to kind of get the product to where it is, so that we're super happy with it, and the end result, in our case, has been positive. Now that's not been the case for everyone, but it's just to say, like, you don't know what is around the corner, so try and time things the best you can, but don't fret about it too much. But I do think back to, if there is an itch to scratch, then give it a go. And it's that phrase and that comment that we just shared. It's like, give it a go and try and understand what is the worst that is going to happen. And then from a practical perspective, we did things like, what's your survival budget? What is your kind of get out plan as such? And it doesn't have to be anything. Ours was, we've got this amount of money. This will last us 6 months. If we haven't made it work by then, we'll have to get another job, and then we'll have to give it another go. That was our exit plan. It wasn't like some grandiose strategy of how you escape unscathed. It's like, you'll have lost a few grand, you'll have given it a go, you'll have learned a lot, and then you may or may not do something again in the future. So it is, I think, if it's something you really bought into, you got a good reason for doing it, you've done your testing, and it is good fun. Stressful, but it's good fun.
Love it. Absolutely fantastic. Your enthusiasm shows really strongly, and it's wonderful. And if you started again, either businesses, is there anything significant that you might do differently, do you think?
Yeah, yeah, a lot. There is. It's a bit of a funny question, isn't it? Because all of the things you've done where you've messed up previously, you do, again, it sounds a bit cliche, but you've learned your lessons from them, and you don't do it again thereafter. So, I mean, if we were to start Python again tomorrow, then we could have it up to the same size in 1/5 of the time, 1/10 of the time. We would get there exceptionally fast because of all of the learnings. To answer your question in maybe more of a helpful way, I think we probably didn't recruit fast enough with Titus, and we held on to held on to money and didn't take as maybe almost as many risks as we could have done, and thought we could perhaps grow it more on our own than we were able to. So as soon as we started to employ people, we saw that trajectory change. So think it through carefully, budget, forecast, all the rest of it. But pulling in people certainly helped for us, and we did that soon with HACIEN when we started again with the tequila. I think trying to really understand what your focus is and not spread yourself too thin. And there's that video of a dog running around the park with tennis balls everywhere. Find the tennis ball, run after that one, stick with that one. That's because all of a sudden you've got slather all over different tennis balls and no one's winning. So yeah, find your focus, stick to it. And then with both with HACIEN and with Titus is focusing on the end consumer and how can you make that experience as good as possible, and then the money follows. I am a big advocate for making sure that you understand your finances, you're close to them, you're forecasted, you've got your runway, you know your burn rate, all of that kind of stuff. But I think you don't have to have finance at the forefront of every single thing. If you kind of put the customer first, be that what's in the glass or what's on the laptop when they're doing their L&D, then the money does follow. And yeah, I think people, once someone's anything of, like I said, done something of note, bloody hell, imagine they've done that. But again, there's another phrase, which is like, was it Steve Jobs? I think he'd mentioned it, but it's like when you realize that everything around you was built by no one smarter than yourselves, meaning that there was a point when they were a baby, when they couldn't walk, when they went to school, when they did X, Y, Z. So the laptop were on, the phone we used, the table we sat at, the chair, all of it. They all didn't exist at one point. So it can seem and feel quite overwhelming, but when you understand that at the very core of it, we're all kind of the same. People are just taking particular chances with good ideas, good people around them, and usually a bit of dosh chucked in at some point, then you can do whatever you want.
Fantastic, great, absolutely brilliant. And what would be, if looking backwards, what would be the best advice you could give an 18-year-old you if you could go back in time and do so?
Just suitable for the podcast one or not suitable?
It's okay.
I'm always really, this is not all that businessy, this is more of a personal desire, but so when I was 18, I went to Ecuador for a month on World Challenge, and we did this, like saved up a load of money and did fundraising.
Wow.
Did trekking and started to practice Spanish, did some Spanish there. I'm okay with Spanish. I'd love to be able to speak a language fluently. I think that helps hugely, whether it's just in life or in business. I think that'd be amazing. I'd have perhaps done a few more businessy bits. Like one thing that you're seeing now, and digital, web, internet, whatever has made that so much easier, is like people starting at a significantly younger age. And even when you look at, I don't know, professional footballers, you think, God, I can't believe they're on this amount of money aged 20, 19, whatever. They've been playing football for 15 years by that time. It's not that they've just done that overnight. So the sooner you can start, then the sooner you get to that point that you think you might be. And I'm not that old. I'm 32, but I feel more tired now, 10 years on, than I did when we started. So like when you're younger, you got more beans, you got less responsibility, probably a bit more, a bit less risk averse. So you can go for stuff as well. But yeah, go for stuff early. Give it a try. Learn Spanish.
Learn Spanish, perfect.
Yeah,
absolutely. Well, so it's been really, fascinating today, and as I say, your enthusiasm for what you do and what you continue to do is shining through. And it'd be great maybe to swing by another sort of 6-12 months, because I'm sure things would have changed actually with HACIEN. And just for anyone that's watching right now, if they want to get in touch with you or either companies, what's the best way to do that?
Let me think. So we've got tituslearning.com, which is for anything edtech related, and on the usual channels, LinkedIn, Instagram, and all the rest of it. HACIEN, that is at HACIEN Tequila on Instagram, and that's HACIEN.com, HACIEN. But we do, with HACIEN in particular, loads of different events up and down the country. So there's lots of stuff there, and giveaways and comps, and a chance to drink tequila. So all good.
Sounds great. Brilliant.
Yeah.
Once again, thanks so much. And I say it'd be great to catch up again sometime in the future.
Happy to do so. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.